All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this January 23rd, 2025 school board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first, just let everyone know Mr. Nazaro is running late. He'll be coming in a little while. We'll go ahead and start without him since we have a quorum. This time I'll open the floor for public comment. Not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead and close public comment at 5:16 and head right into committee updates and board comments. Any committee updates?
Yep. The budget committee met, voted to recommend all of the school district and the town warrant articles. So that procedural step is completed, and nothing at this point until the deliberative session, which is, I believe, a week from Saturday at Town Hall. We're going first at 9 in the morning.
It's here.
It's here.
It's here at the junior senior high. We're at
10
10 o'clock. Town's at 9.
Okay, Town's at 9. We're at 10 o'clock. Last thing there, for anyone interested, there are going to be 4 vacancies on the budget committee. 3 members are up for re-election, as well as the chair is resigning just due to personal commitments. So there'll be 4 seats available to run for. And if you're interested, please sign up over the next week at Town Hall and run for office.
But before you do that, consider running for school board, who has 2 seats that are open, and the filing period goes through January 31st. Any other board comments? Any updates? No? All right, we'll move right along into student rep report. We are going to change things up a little bit on the agenda and have an EOL update from some of the students presented here tonight as part of the student rep report.
So for sports, girls basketball, last Friday they traveled to Profile and won 58-13. Tuesday they lost to Farmington 28-48. And then tomorrow they play youth away. And then next week we have home games Tuesday and Friday. Boys basketball travels up to Profile as well and lost 38-53. And then they lost to Farmington 46-52. And they will also travel to take on Nate tomorrow. And then stay in home games next Tuesday and Friday as well. Unified basketball had a really good game in sports mix yesterday. It was very close, and we had a big student section for them to show them some support. Around 40 students and varsity athletes attended the game, and it was just overall a great atmosphere. It was really awesome to see everyone supporting the team. Very impressive as well. Swim, the Bobcat Invitational is on Sunday, and it's their biggest meet of the season and people's last chance to qualify for states. And then overall, it's been a really good season for them with a lot of personal events. Hockey had a game last Wednesday versus Co-Brown, and they lost. And then they also just lost last night to Spalding 0-4. And then they have a game next Wednesday versus Dover, which will be away. And then indoor track last Saturday had their first qualifying meet at UNH. Some shout outs: Amelia placed 6th in the 55 hurdles, Magnolia placed 5th in the 600, and then Sawyer placed 6th in the 600 as well. And then this Saturday they have a meet at Exeter. As for some clubs, SALT, we're going to start doing a mental health quote of the month, which we will post on the Instagram, the TV in the lobby, and on the newsletter. We also just voted on the Wheel of the Month, but that hasn't been posted yet, so it's still secret. Can't share that one yet. Currently planning a parents' night out in mid-March, though, to just engage in like the Newmarket youth and then give parents a break. So excited for you all. National Honor Society, first Monday of every month, they send members to Sunrise Sunset Senior Center to help out with tech questions and like just tech issues in general. And we've gotten very good feedback on that. It's been very helpful. But it has been kind of hard to find some students to go during sports season. So members outside of the club and from other clubs have been able to step up and help out as well. So that's been great. And then they're also planning on a fundraiser to replenish the money that they use for Adopt a Family. Learned a little bit more about that today, but not quite sure what's going on with that yet. National English Honor Society, they're doing writing tutor workshops, especially with freshmen because it's mandatory for them right now. so it's good feedback for them. And then net zero, we're going to start a rock painting project, which will gather rocks and then put kindness messages on them and environmental messages, and then put them out by the trees that we planted last year. Earth Day is coming up, so figuring stuff out for that and what we can do. Interact, planning on making some Valentine's Day cards for the Pines. And then their big project, Newmarket Cares Day, is coming up, so doing some planning for that as well. Student Council currently planning the Spring Spirit Week and the days that we'll do for that. And then we also are doing like a day for every month, and January 21st we did World Appreciation Day, which is big, but we just put acorns around the school, and if we found one, we got a cupcake. So, pretty fun. Model UN, they have a mock conference coming soon, and they're planning future dates for other conferences. Band is currently planning a chocolate fest, which will include desserts and chocolates in the music hallway, and then different groups will be around playing their instruments and singing. That's planned for February 19th, and then they're also just currently practicing for the spring concert. And then grade-wise, 9th grade is currently doing a Little Caesar fundraiser. 10th grade is planning a bake-off February 12th. The juniors are doing a calendar raffle and a chili cook-off coming soon. And then seniors just did a craft fair in December, which was very successful. Got greater than like $4,000 probably from that, so that's very helpful. And then also just prom, met with the venue coordinator, and then really focusing in on prom and everything that comes with that. And then finally, I'd like to invite Liliana Santaromo and Robbie. Okay, just Liliana to Mike to talk about her ELO, her summer learning opportunity.
Maybe Mr. Hayes too, how about that?
Yeah. Mike. Yeah.
Been a while since I've been a student, so it's fun to
Hey, can a mic not hear you?
We can hear you, we're good. Take this one, cut his mic in.
We know that one works.
Yeah. Turn on the public. Does this one work, Steve? You can hear this one, the lapel mic. Steve, does this one work? Okay, this one works. All right.
Try that.
Yeah, let's just go with it.
Roll with it, just talk loud.
Yeah.
All right, here's my question. So currently we have 17 students doing ELOs this year. We have some in-house, we have some out in the district and everything. I did invite 2 students to come. Brad Jones is one. He was sick today, so he can't come. Unfortunately, he did the EMT project. The certification course over at Wake was very thorough, and he did a great job with that. I met with him last week to go over that, and the information that he was just giving us was tremendous. So next he's going to be studying for the certification test and looking to next for hopefully a future employment as a graduating senior. We do have Lily Santaramo, who is here, and she's working at the elementary school in one of our 5th grade classrooms, and I'll let her share that experience.
Like Mr. Hayes said, I'm currently doing my study work in elementary school. So what it looks like day to day is I go in around about 11, and the children are working on math. So I get to experience like things like reading, creating papers, and seeing how that goes. And then usually they'll break off into small
That's great. Thank you so much. If you want a real experience, ask them to break out the mimeograph and they can show you how that works. That'd be a real treat for you.
Do you have ambitions of being a teacher later on?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Have you started looking at what programs you might be considering after high school, or is that still down the road?
Right now, my top choice is teen, and I'm looking to do like early childhood development, like education there.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Good luck.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for coming in. We appreciate it. Olivia, do you have any final student report items? Okay. Well, thank you very much. You reminded me that tonight is 2025 project graduation fundraiser down at Riverworks. So if anyone's interested, head down to Riverworks, get some food, and support the project graduation. And with that, we'll head right into the superintendent report.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to just right away say I'm always impressed when Olivia does her report, just how much is going on in the school. It just blows me away how much our kids are doing. It's fantastic. I do want to mention I spoke to Sean Pine, and we had talked about having a 5th grade student council member come in. So hopefully we'll have a 5th grade student council member come in next meeting to share a little bit about what's going on there as well. So anyway, good stuff. Thank you. Couple of things that I wanted to highlight. You should see on our website the budget flyer is there that we talked about at our last meeting. I would like to highlight the fact that Ellen Needham took what was a fairly one-dimensional format and turned it into a trifold brochure that has 2 versions. One that's on our website that's easy to navigate if you're on an iPhone or whatever. You can look at it. And then there's also going to be a trifold version which we'll have available at the deliberative and out and about for people to see. Another thing I just wanted to mention on just budget communications, we are in the process of working on an animated video that will be describing the warrant and giving community information about that, and that will be coming out. And we hope to have that ready by deliberative, which, as Dan pointed out, is Saturday, February 1st here at the junior senior high cafeteria. Second thing I wanted to mention, I was invited to contribute to a survey for the town master plan recreation subcommittee. And so I gave answers about what the school district was working on, and immediately Steve, the guy who's facilitating it for the Stratford County organization that's helping them do the plan, reached out and said, hey, would you be willing to join the committee? And so I actually joined. Actually, Phil was there as well, joined the committee earlier this week, and talked about some of the ambitions that the school district has talked about around athletic fields and so forth. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I was really pleased is that the entire committee was doing a lot of head nodding and encouraging of like, yeah, you guys need to, it would be a good idea to move on that sooner rather than later. So what it motivated me to do is to really get the committee that we've talked about forming going. So tomorrow I'm meeting with Amy and Sam from the rec, and we're going to start brainstorming who we want to invite from the community to kind of be a part of this dialogue. The idea would be to have a committee that would be a superintendent's committee that would take a look at athletic fields in the community, what our current programs are, what our current needs are, and then potentially looking at what other programs we might want to be able to offer if we had the facilities to be able to do it. So anyway, my hope is that we might be able to produce some kind of a document with recommendations probably prior to next budget cycle. That would be my goal. So hopefully that will come about. But I was very pleased at how well received the idea of the school district taking a look at the field across the street and taking a look at what that might be able to become. So there's that. And the last thing I wanted to mention, just because it came up in the news, it was a topic that I had addressed with you guys during budget development. We had talked a lot about special education, and in particular the shortfall on the CAT aid coming from the state. You may recall there were over $50 million worth of CAT aid requests coming from school districts across the state, and only $33 million of it was funded. And what that meant to Newmarket was we got $187,000 less than what we should have received. Whether or not it will result in anything, I did see that the commissioner has requested of the legislature to take a look at making up that funding shortfall. So fingers crossed, if that plays out, maybe there is an avenue for us to get at least some of that shortfall returned to us, as it were. So I found that very positive, so I'm hopeful that that will result in some positive change. And that is all I have for you tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Is there any questions or follow-up for Sean?
No, but the flyer does look really vast improvement visually. I like the graphs.
Yes, Ellen is very creative, and I was very pleased that she took it on.
She did a fantastic job. She actually worked a little bit late at night and a few days on the weekend and did a really amazing job, so we appreciate it. Next up, we'll head into discussion items. First up is our 2023-24 audit presentation. Jana, would you mind introducing that?
Sure. Tonight we have with us Tyler Payne. He is our lead auditor from the firm Plodzik & Sanderson. We've been with Plodzik & Sanderson for several years, but this is Tyler's first year with the district, so it's nice to get a fresh perspective. Different people look at different roles, and it's always great to get feedback. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Tyler to kind of walk you through. You have copies of the documents in your packet, and he'll be kind of giving you a very high, at my request, kind of a very high overview of the document and the kinds of things that it contains, and a brief discussion on internal controls, things that will help us maintain, a solid audit and integrity with our financial statements. So thank you for being here tonight, Tyler.
No problem. I can kind of hear you a little bit, but I think I caught most of what you said there, Jana. But I appreciate the introduction. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. So as Jana mentioned, my name's Tyler Payne. I'm a manager with Plodzik & Sanderson. I've been with the firm for 15 years, and I was the in-charge auditor for the Newmarket School District this year. And this is the first year that I've worked with you guys. So it was definitely a pleasure and a learning experience for all. But I'm here tonight just to give kind of a quick top-level review of the audit results and the overall financials. And I promise not to keep you too long. I do talk pretty fast. We'll move pretty quickly. So the first place I wanted to start is the overall results of the audit. That is on page 4, the independent auditor's report. Starts on page 4, I should say. Most importantly is the opinion paragraph. We issued unmodified opinions on all opinion units of the school district, which essentially is the best possible opinion that we can render as auditors. So essentially we indicated that all opinion units are fairly stated in all material respects. Additionally, because the school district expended over $750,000 of federal awards in a given year, we also had to perform a single audit, which is kind of a compliance-based audit on those federal programs. And the results of those can be found on page 55, 56, and 57 and 58. And essentially, again, we rendered unmodified opinions on all programs and all internal controls relating to those programs. So again, the best possible results in regards to the single audit. Lastly, on page 59, there is the schedule of findings. If we had any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that we identified in the school district's internal control processes or procedures, we would have indicated those there. And you notice there are no financial statement findings or single audit findings. So again, wonderful positive results from the overall audit perspective. Now, I want to draw your attention to one of the most important financial statements I find in our audit is on page 50. It's the schedule of the unassigned fund balance of the school district. What you have available for surplus to either reduce the tax rate, retain, or, I guess those are the two options. But so on schedule 3, page 50, you open with an unassigned fund balance of about $1.2 million. The district fund balance was used to reduce the district assessment of about $771,000. Additionally, the district appropriated $212,000, which reduced the fund balance. The budgetary results where there was a revenue surplus and an unexpended balance of appropriations, resulting in an overall budgetary surplus of just shy of $1 million. Additionally, other changes in fund balance categories impact your available surplus. So at the end of the year, the district closed with a fund balance of $470,889 as far as unassigned. Your retained amount, that the 5%, has already been pulled out of that figure, just to give you a little information. This is considered our budgetary financial statements. This is how the information is tracked internally. It's how it's presented to you guys. The next financial statements I'm going to cover are slightly different. They're considered the modified accrual, and that's Exhibit C1 and C3. That can be found on pages 16 and 18. So the differences in these statements here is you'll notice there's a column for the general fund, federal projects, and other governmental funds. So essentially the federal project is displayed separately because it's a major fund. So essentially its assets, liabilities, revenue, or expenditures exceed 10% of the school district's totals. Any other funds that do not, food service for instance, they're wrapped up into that other governmental funds column, and the details of those can be found on schedules 4 through 7, and those are pages 51 through 54. Additionally, there's a slight difference in the presentation of the general fund here. GASB 54 required that any fund that is substantially supported by the general fund were required to blend as one reporting unit. So the district's expendable trust funds, capital reserves, and I believe there's a couple dedicated student activity funds that are district related that are rolled up to create that general fund right there. So this is considered the modified accrual basis. The last type of financial statements that we report are the full accrual basis. That's similar to what you see in the corporate world. Those can be found on Exhibit A and B, pages 14 and 15. So you'll notice one column, governmental activities. That is essentially all of your funds that I previously showed on Exhibit C1, C3 combined together, and then including any of the district's long-term assets and long-term liabilities. Long-term assets being your capital assets, fixed assets, whatever terminology you use, and your long-term liabilities, your reporting the liabilities relating to New Hampshire. You will notice there is a deficit or negative unrestricted and total net position that I work with here in New Hampshire, and mainly due to having to report their proportionate share of the something that we commonly see there. So I just wanted to draw your attention there and highlight that it's not overall negative. If we move to
Tyler, I apologize.
the revenue,
We're having a tiny bit of trouble with our internet connection here apparently. So you're cutting in and out a bit, but I think we're getting most of it.
okay, do you want me to back up at all?
I think it's our internet connection, not you.
Yeah, I think it's us, definitely. I don't think anyone missed anything substantially, I believe. Nope, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay. So Exhibit B on page 15, takes a different approach to reporting the revenues and the expenditures. It shows the total expenditures by function or department, and then the dedicated revenues or program revenues that fund those areas before the utilization of general revenues. So for instance, if you're looking at the instruction line, you see total expenditures of about 15 million. You have charges for services of $218,000. That's typically your tuition that you've raised to offset that cost. And then, as I mentioned before, it shows the overall deficits in those areas prior to the utilization of the general revenues, most importantly or most significantly, the school district assessment. On Exhibit C2 and C4, pages 17 and 19, these are what we call our reconciliation schedules. They walk you from Exhibit C1 and C3 to the full accrual statements that I just showed you, Exhibit A and B. It shows what your equity or your fund balance started with, and all in the inclusion of those long-term assets, long-term liabilities to come down to the total net position. And similar to C4, it looks at the change in fund balance and factors in all those elements to show how that becomes the change in net position on Exhibit A. Just to kind of summarize overall, the school district had the best possible results when it came to opinions. We rendered unmodified opinions on the financial statements and the single audits. We didn't identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies that were reportable conditions. So again, very positive results. I like to also highlight or to bring to your attention some future considerations to look for next year. Typically, GASB pronouncements are coming out fast and furious. So we have a new one, GASB 101, that pertains to the compensated absences liability that you currently have in your financial statements. And it's kind of beefing it up a little bit to factor in some other elements. Some not as applicable for some of the schools we work with, sabbatical leave, floating holidays, other little things that could potentially be factored into that liability. More of a reporting change, so nothing that has to be planned too much internally on your end. And then additionally, thankfully, the single audit threshold by the federal government is being increased to about $1 million. It's being rolled out slowly depending on when the program I guess, the grant was initiated. So some might fall into the old threshold, some will fall into the new, but essentially there might be a point going forward where the school district might not require a single audit, especially with ESSER being phased out. And just to recap, it was a pleasure working with the business office this year. As I mentioned, it was the first time we worked with them, my team, and we hit the ground running, and Jana and her staff made everything very easy and easy to work with. So I just wanted to pay them credit where credit's due, because they do a great job, and I look forward to continuing to working together. And this is typically where I open up to any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have any questions? No? Oh, Dan, go ahead.
I read through the cover letter that you sent along with the audit, and one thing, not flagged, but one thing that it noted was talking about the student activity funds, which is not a large dollar amount or something I consider to be really rife for any sort of malfeasance, but it is something that community members involved in the fundraising have a significant personal investment in. Are there any recommended best practices for handling these that you're aware of that we should think about adopting?
My goodness, if I did, there would be a lot less student activity issues across the state, because that seems to be, at least we're working with business offices, that's kind of their thorn in their side, because oftentimes they're not part of their centralized process. So it's tough for them to get those under their reins. I don't remember specifically, but I do have some school districts that actually require the student activity funds to go through their purchase order process. That alleviates and identifies issues before their actually purchases can be made, so they can be stopped dead, by the business office before they go ahead and do something inappropriate with those funds. Other than that, we do offer training, we do offer guidebooks, but it's just about educating those that are in those positions and making them aware of any issues we identify and what we recommend that they do going forward.
Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions?
It might not be a question, and thank you for letting me arrive a little bit late. Apologize, coming back from Boston. There is, and this might be a question for other than the accountants, it seems like they mentioned a program that's like subsidizing the other, or is being subsidized by other programs at the elementary school. I'm interested, there might be something that doesn't pull in revenue, but it's an important program. Like it feels less of an auditing issue and more of like a budgetary discussion issue. I don't know if there's any insight.
I couldn't hear exactly which.
Sorry, I have no idea. All it says that they identified one group had a deficit ending balance. This is the elementary school.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
I can give some more information on that if you like.
Yeah, or I can go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, so essentially, the tracking of those student activity funds, each group, they all share one bank account. So there's tracking to make sure to identify what the carrying balance in each group is at any given point. And at the fiscal year end, there was, I don't know if it was one group, I'd have to look at my notes, but there was one or two groups that had deficit balances. So essentially they overspent their funding, and in essence, they are borrowing from other groups until other funding comes in to absolve that deficit.
And in particular, the one that was overdrawn, there was already a plan in place for the principals fund, the discretionary fund, to provide the payment to that fund, but the transfer didn't happen as it should have. It should have happened in advance, not after the fact.
Okay.
So when we closed the year, the transfer hadn't happened. The transfer happened in July. Everything was squared away as of July 1st, but unfortunately it happened post closing of the books.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Tyler? No? Tyler, thank you very much. We appreciate all your time. Apologize for the technological glitches we had, but we appreciate it.
No problem. Everyone have a wonderful evening, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you,
Thank
Tyler.
you, too.
Thank you.
Janet, do you have any wrap-up you want to do?
I just have one comment to make, and well, we very much appreciate Tyler's, assessment and the fact that my team does a good job. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize that this isn't my audit. This is a whole team effort, and I have some people in my office that really work hard, take a great pride in their work. We've built a whole bunch of procedures to make sure that these clean findings and the internal controls support these going forward. So I just would like to say you have a great team up there in the business office, and I'm grateful to work with all of them, so thank you.
Well, as always, we appreciate you and them. Thank you very much.
Take care.
All right, Janet, while you're there, if you want to head right into
Sure.
2025 Q2 financials.
Sure.
2025, excuse me, Q2.
So quarter two financials is always, we're halfway through the year. We expect to be about halfway through most of our revenues. A lot of those are timed, so we don't always, we usually get about half of them. Coincidentally, it was exactly 50%. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, but that's where we're at. So as we've gone through, basically, as of the end of quarter two, when I talk about the unexpended expenditure budget, basically that means any funds that I don't have locked up in a purchase order or in an obligation for payroll or benefits. We have about $1,200,000 left at this point. That's fairly typical for this point in the year because we still have some things that we wind up spending in the third and the fourth quarter that aren't known at this point. And some of those, like for example, we may make severance payments. We have sick day buybacks and things like that that are not yet encumbered that will be coming. We also have some unanticipated facilities expenditures usually that come up, and we manage that very well with our budget, but we always try to account for the unexpected that might arise at the end of the year. So that's a good place to be at this point. As I said, about 50% of our revenues have come in year to date. The large portion of that is the district assessment that comes from the town from taxation and our adequacy and our swept aid, which comes periodically 4 times during the year. The monthly assessment comes from the town, and then 4 times a year we get that state revenue. So we anticipate those will fully be received by the end of the year. In the food service fund, as you probably saw in the audit, one of the things on that management letter that they mentioned was that we had an excess fund balance. This comes as no news to you. I've been talking about that for a while. But I wanted to share with you, we recently got our spend down plan approved. We can only retain a certain amount of surplus fund balance. So we had to have about $24,000 that we needed to find ways to enhance our program. I want to make one thing that I have to point out, we are unable to use those funds to offset student debt. Unfortunately, that is not an allowable use for those funds. But we can use them to enhance our program. So our plan was approved by the state. We have some exciting things, I think they're exciting, that are coming up. We're going to be installing a water bottle filling station in the NES cafeteria. There is water available there, but it's outside the cafeteria. So we're going to have it in there. We're going to have a cup dispenser so any child can go up and access water whenever they want. We are going to be migrating our point of sale software and our eligibility software to a cloud-based product, which is going to be much easier for our IT staff to maintain, much more secure. It's also going to come with some other enhanced things that we can do. We're going to be implementing PIN pads. Students will be assigned a PIN and they can just type their PIN number. If they can't remember their PIN number, they can always do their name, but it typically gets people through the line quicker. The neat part about moving to that type of system is that we then have the potential to purchase or utilize a vending machine that we can put smart snacks in, and kids can go up and they can type their PIN number in and it gets charged to their account, and the snacks are all within the program parameters, so it allows kids to get snacks when they're hungry. So that's really a neat thing. We are super excited. The rollout date is supposed to be February 1st. We are going to be rolling out a fresh fruits and vegetables bar at our elementary school. We kind of have that with a salad bar at the high school. We've always had like packaged options for kids. This is going to be a self-serve model, a sneeze guard. Kids are going to be able to go through different array of vegetables every day. Anybody that purchases a meal or an entree, they can take as much of the vegetables as they want. They can go up as many times as they want. And of course, that's what we want to see as parents, educators, and community members, is them hitting that vegetable bar hard. So we are very excited to roll that out. We have a plan in place. We're working on the details of providing some of our district level staffing support to help kids get acclimated, and put some protocols in place so that somebody doesn't take the whole bin of oranges, but maybe 3 or 4 and then comes back and gets some more. But that actually, the exciting part is that recommendation came out of a food service advisory committee on which we had some students that gave us some input. And they said they really would like some fresher options. We had this money. we were able to get student input to make our program better. So that is like the win-win-win all around. We also have already run one, it's called a pop-up chef event. We have a guest chef that comes in and they set up a booth and they serve different things. The first one we had, they had a cute name for it and I forget what it was, but it's basically sandwiches, but a different take. So you might have 2 slices of cucumber with different options in the middle, like it was handhelds, but all different kinds of options. And the students really liked it. It was very well received. We have another one coming up on the 28th, which is the mac and cheese bar. So you can have all kinds of toppings and vegetables and different things that kids can add in. Guest chef. We have a flyer up on the website if any parents want to see the nature of what it is, but I anticipate it's going to be very, very good. So that's a lot of fun. And then finally, I mentioned the smart snack vending machine. If we're able to do all of that and we still stay underneath that 24,000, I'd love to get a vending machine for the junior senior high that kids can access during the day using their PIN. So we are really looking to maximize and increase our program. We just completed an administrative audit. The state came out this week. We had 3 members from the state and 2 from the federal government. We had all 5. So we will, we've kind of reviewed, we have some recommended actions to take, nothing egregious, but certainly we appreciate any feedback that the state or the federal government can give us to help us enhance our program and make it better. So more to come on that. So with that, I've given you the food service statements. One thing I want to point out right now, at this point, the food service variance, we're at a negative 4,000. But again, remember, we are trying to actively spend down. So I anticipate that we will end the year with a negative because that's how we will arrive at that spend down plan. So as you see the fund balance go down, we're doing exactly what we plan to do. So with that, I'll open it up. The others there are variances, but I have explanations. It's kind of standard where we're at now. Does anyone have any questions about any of the individual statements?
I don't have any question about these, but the snack vending machine sounds like a great idea. It sounds really interesting. Well, I'll get the mac and cheese date for you, Phil, in a second. But I guess I'm just wondering, are there any fail-safes in place? Because I can picture kids getting other kids' IDs or going to get 50 sandwiches for their friends like they've done, in other methods.
So we anticipate that the smart snack vending machine would not have meal options. It would be more of like a bag of chips or a bag of something that would qualify. We would obviously, we're not looking to roll it out at the elementary school just yet because we think that our high school population probably would be a little better clientele to test that out with. But the way, if we have the ability to change pins at any time, so if a pin was compromised, we can spin up a new pin if something gets purchased that shouldn't get purchased. But we're gonna walk through it. We're gonna try it. There are a lot of districts that use it. I'm sure we have some things to learn, but it feels like a really good opportunity to hit kids when they're hungry, which is obviously what we want to do,
Absolutely.
throughout the day.
That's great. Any questions, Dave?
I know you covered this. So the adequacy aid coming in above budget, was that the per pupil number, or is it just that we had more enrollment, or a combination of the two?
I think it was based on, they do an estimate, and then when the final data comes in, they recalculate it. I think there are several components that go into it that they evaluate based off of, and I don't remember which ones made it go up. I know our free and reduced dropped, but there's other metrics that they calculate in, and some of those went up marginally. So I think it's just they estimate as close as they can, and when they calculate it out, you get a more accurate number.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry to spring this on you without giving you advance warning, but so during COVID, there was free lunches for everybody, and our free and reduced lunch program participation dropped significantly, which makes sense. And we've been seeing it recover slowly, but now I'm hearing you say it's gone down a little. Is that, can we attribute to that, to anything? Is it improvements in our community?
It's interesting because there are we can't attribute it to any particular factor. Some of it comes down to individual families and decisions that we make. Like, for example, I told you before, we're doing the fresh fruits and vegetables program only at grades 6 through 8. Whatever reason, grades 6 through 8 qualified. They met the threshold, a high enough free and reduced level to qualify there, but we didn't meet it at the elementary school, which is exactly the opposite of what I would have expected to see. So some of it has to do with the family's choice to fill out. Some of it has to do with we have a population. The most frustrating scenario for us is when we get an application and it's very, very close to the threshold, but they're just slightly over. It's that population that really, sometimes it can be $50 that makes the difference between getting it and not. And, so that's kind of frustrating on our side when we see that. I'd get up on my stump and talk about free meals for all kids, but I think I've done that before. So I don't have any real explanation. I can tell you that we definitely involve our school teams, our social workers and our principals, and if there are students that they know are in a situation that seems to be financially fragile, they are making outreach to the families to saying, hey, do you know you can, if you haven't already done so, let's fill out a free and reduced application. We work very closely with them. We were fortunate to receive some donations to food service, so we go back to our experts at the building level and say, what families do you think we should, distribute this between? And so we work very closely with our counseling and our social workers on that, and we do try and reach families where they're at. We do a robust, send out at the beginning of the year, and then just organically things kind of slow to a trickle. We may get 1 or 2 during the year, but I don't have any answers. I wish I did.
It's worth asking. Thank you very much.
Right.
Anybody else?
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Have a great night. All right, continuing tonight's discussion. We've done EOL, so we're going to skip that. We talked last meeting about asking, oh, go ahead,
I
sorry.
was just going to say, we'd like to just share with you some basic information about
Yeah,
middle school. Are you heading into that?
we can. I will, I promise.
I
No,
just
no,
wanna
that's
make
great.
sure
Thank you for
we didn't dive
reminding
into
me.
the discussion first.
Yeah. So we've talked about having a name change and asking the superintendent to look into it, and we thought it'd be good to have a quick presentation about what a middle school is, how we actually act more like a middle school, as well as later on we'll have an action item to see if we're going to authorize the superintendent officially and the administrative team to look into a name change. Is that good enough of an intro?
Perfect, yes,
All right,
absolutely.
thanks.
So I've invited 2 of my dearest friends to come join me here tonight. Because obviously we've had this conversation about middle school versus junior high, and while tonight the discussion is about whether or not to authorize leadership to go forward with developing a plan to do it, I thought it would make sense to just take a few minutes to talk about what middle school means and why we're making such a big deal about it. I think it's important that people hear that we are actively moving in a middle school direction with all of the structural changes, and you'll hear about that in just a minute from Andy. So it's really more, in my mind, this is really a topic of quite truthful accuracy and advertising, like we're making sure that what we are is what we are calling ourselves. And I think the junior high name is largely an invention of the 1950s. And it's a structure that is much more like a high school than it is a mechanism that works for early adolescence. So with that, I'm going to ask Patty to jump in and sort of give us the background.
So what does it mean to change from a junior high to a middle school? Okay. So I thought I would just kind of take you back to why nationally you saw a lot of schools across the country move from the junior high model to a middle school model. It really came out of a publication from the National Middle School Association in 1995, and it was a paper, This We Believe, Developmentally Responsible Middle Level Schools. And so basically identified the characteristics of a middle school, the major, 6 major components, and then emphasizing a middle school is developmentally responsive, challenging, empowering, and equitable. We're not going to get into the weeds of each of these characteristics because they're very big. These are big topics. These are big discussions. But it is these 6 characteristics is what really embodies a middle school philosophy. So when you hear people say, oh, it's a middle school philosophy, it's not a junior high, this is what they're talking about. This is when we talk about, like, philosophically, these characteristics, what it means. And I don't know if we can move the pictures. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Is that bottom right one, just so that you could see the 6 characteristics.
And I would, just as a side point, I would imagine these 6 characteristics will be used in conversation with middle school staff as we talk about how to make ourselves more like that.
And as you read these, many of these are really in line with Andy's values that the teachers actually crafted from the NEAS report. So it's really, each one supports the other.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of obvious crossover here, and a lot of the things that we're talking about are actually just being much more purposeful and meaningful.
Yep. And then the components, you're talking about curriculum, varied approaches and experiences for students. What does assessment, evaluation look like? How is it authentic? The organizational structures that Andy obviously always addresses, and really programs and policies that foster and support health, wellness, and safety of our middle school students. And then the comprehensive guidance and support services, that's all rolled in when we're thinking a middle school environment. So successful middle school, so we're going to go back to developmentally responsive and back to 1995 from the published This We Believe paper. That's what we were almost making junior high kids high schoolers, and developmentally it's just not appropriate. Their readiness is not there. So for a successful middle school, it's being developmentally responsive, challenging our students, empowering our students, giving them agency, and obviously being equitable with all of our students as well. I'm going to have Andy take this one.
Yeah, and it's Patty's kind. We weren't almost the same high school students. We were. When I took over it was a copy-paste high school, middle school schedule. And it was just wildly inappropriate to think of your 18-year-old in 90 minutes of math and your 11-year-old in 90 minutes of math. That doesn't make sense. It's not in anyone's best interest. And produced a lot of obvious problems pretty quickly. So we made that major schedule change last year, where we went to a more traditional 6-period, hour-long day. Even again, from some of the things we learned last year about things like placement and purpose of advisory and where it would work, and talk to you guys about wellness, and as an administrator having the problem every day after lunch and hearing from the staff, how do we change the actual structure of the delivery to meet the kids where they're at? And we made major changes schedually, and now making some changes internally around some of those things. The big issue around student agency and equitability, by essentially operating 2 schools within the confines of 1 building, we have 2 student councils, we have 2 assemblies, we have 2 of everything that are more tailored and appropriate to our middle school students. And a large part of our day administratively is going, all right, what's middle school doing right now? How does high school impact? And that goes from a curriculum piece to a discipline piece to a structure. I changed about 65% of the staff at middle school for this year. We moved a lot of people around. I was not everyone's favorite person last March. A lot of tears, a lot of anger in my office. I will say, selfishly, as a pat on the back, those that were most resistant, by October of this year, were in my office going, thank you. I appreciate it. This makes more sense. I was scared. I'm very happy where I am, whether it was new grade level, coming from high school to middle school or middle school to high school, making some tough administrative decisions to physically change people's assignments has really shuffled up our middle school team structure and been better. One of the things that we always struggle with is everybody loves their elementary school. It's a great experience, but as you progress on, you can't find an adult in the world that had a great middle school experience. It is what it is. And I know that, but how do we stop that rapid drop-off from super parent-involved 5th graders to I'm not going to even look at your building as 6th graders? They're still there. They still care about their kids. How do we increase that family reach out? How do we do things to draw them in? Simple things we've done, like changing the open house structure. Rather than having it just be a copy paste of high school. We're now team-based. The team talks to the parents for 30 minutes, faced with a name and having conversation, which wasn't an option before. And I know from talking to Sean and being jealous of some of the things that he has down there with his PTA that I just don't have access to. We need to find ways to re-engage, or rather continually engage folks as 5th grade parents, 6th grade parents, and keep them in the building, keep them invested. And one of the things that we're interested 6-12 actually is this idea of student learning conferences, whether it's at the top end, a senior portfolio to highlight some of the VOG growth, but even at the middle school level, really having a scaffold approach where maybe the kid and the parent come in and have a collaborative conference in October, but by May, that conference is more the student taking charge and going, hey, here, mom, dad, staff, I want to show you the great highlights I've learned over 7th grade and what it's meant to me. Those are things that our kids are fully capable of, and by changing some of the structure and our expectations, again, that are developmentally appropriate, I think we're going to get a massive bang for our buck. So I'll tell you, middle school kids, this space every day from 11:55 to 12:25 is pure energy, and they're pumped up, they're excited, and to challenge them in new ways to really embrace that. I have this crazy idea that kids will love middle school. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but I definitely want them to have memorable experiences with stuff like Touchstone, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade experiences, whether it's curriculum or trips or something that you can go, I'm looking forward to this as a 7th grader. And when I'm a senior, one of the things that really struck me my 2nd year here was the senior slideshow. 90% of it, kids submitted pictures from their 8th grade overnight trip. Like, we're talking 5 years later, this is still something that I'm leaving this building, what's that memory? Kids were overwhelmed. Remember we sang that song around the campfire? Look at this picture of so-and-so dressed up. Or do you remember when this teacher did that? And it really struck me as a thing that we need to capitalize on more. And we got staff that are willing to do it, and now just kind of need to take those next steps and continue to capitalize on it.
So one might ask, what is the value? So obviously, we're talking about all the things we are doing to improve the program regardless. So one might ask you, what's the value of making a name change? And it really is the opportunity to engage the community in a conversation about what is different. And I do think it is interesting to me as I talk with community members, as Andy explained very nicely, people generally don't carry around a positive perception of their time in the middle school years. And trying to get people to understand that there is a better way to do it. There is a way that is more age appropriate, that is better at meeting kids' needs. And again, we're going to do what's educationally appropriate, but I think the idea of making a name change is an opportunity to tell a community where there's a different structure here, there's a different philosophy here, and really it's the idea of being very student-centered and making sure we do what's best for the kids in that age group.
I think it sends an important message to the teachers of the middle school as well as the students that this is different. This isn't,
Right.
You're not a tiny high schooler.
But
This is your own school.
I do think one of the things that, by having both schools in the same building, there is a tendency, and you're never going to move away from, and there's obviously efficiencies of sharing staff and so forth, but if the structure of the building becomes the more important thing than doing the right thing by the age group, you miss opportunities. And I do think one of the things that has happened, and part of it might be pandemic-related structures that were put in place to just get us through, we created a lot of structure over the last 5 years that moved us further away from that. And I think what we have heard from the middle school teachers that are working there now, they understand what needs to happen and they're ready to do it. We just gotta, point in the right direction and really embrace it and make, real important changes. And I'm really excited at what's been done already, but I also think there's lots more room for growth still.
Great. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
It's exciting for me, I think, particularly at the middle school level, to the idea of trying to increase the parental involvement. And, as a veteran now of 11 parent nights across 2 buildings, at the high school level, I liken it to speed dating. You're just room to room to room. And that one night of the year, there's a lot of communication and engagement. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. You have teachers in this building who are resistant, bordering on resentful to parental involvement. That's got to stop. It's inappropriate. It's makes bad situations even more challenging. And it's just a habit that some people are in that they need to get out of. So to start from the middle school level, you know, improving that level of engagement and involvement seems like a really good idea. And yeah, it would be great to see the middle school develop more of its own identity and something more tailored toward how, you know, the strengths and weaknesses that kids have at that age. Going away from the 4-bell schedule was tremendous. I said I'm only sad that my kids missed it because that was that was their sophomore year. But it's got to be enormously helpful because no kid that age can focus on something for 90 minutes. It's just not in their DNA. So,
and then bringing parents on board. Parents are absent. Parents help close the loop. You don't get played against each other. Mom said, teacher said, well, the kid's in the middle and working the system. You close that loop. Excuse me, the kid finds out, oh, you and mom are talking, and we see all the time actually at the high school level. Kids are like, oh, your mom already knows that we're having this conversation and she's on board with this, or you know what, dad's on the phone, let's put him on speaker and it closes that loop. So to be proactive and continue that high parent involvement at the elementary level and just to stretch it over to middle school, just seems like a natural thing to continue that partnership to bring everyone to the table for the best interest of the kid.
Yeah, the other thing I think that would help a lot, and this is all up and down the middle and high school level, is just continuing to work with staff on understanding how Infinite Campus is going to react to the inputs. The volume of I mean, you know, you don't want the thing generating false negatives. You don't want people feeling like everything's good when it isn't. But the volume of false positives that system generates is still a problem when it comes to, you know, missing assignments that aren't actually missing, failing grades that just haven't been completely graded yet. It would be really good to see more work with the faculty on understanding how that system presents things from the parent perspective, and how it can miscommunicate things if you're not careful about how you enter information into it.
Well, and educate the parents, because it's a two-way street, and we need to realize it's just a tool. And you know, we will often get something saying this assignment's missing and fortunate or late, and we happen to know our kid, and we know it's not a big deal. But sure, for some parents, I'm sure it's an issue if they don't realize that.
Yeah,
it just means that a teacher hasn't got to Friday where they happen to grade all the papers and put them in or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to make it perfect. That's not possible. But you know, I feel like we could drive toward a better balance than where we're at right at the moment.
I suspect there's a lot of feedback to teachers already about that system and why hasn't my
Well, I do think
that's a good point.
Some of it goes to what Andy was saying too about closing that sort of communications gap with families, because if parents had confidence that if my kid is struggling, someone's going to tell me, they would feel less high stakes with regards to what's in IC. Yep. Because if you think that's your sole way of knowing something is going well, naturally, if it doesn't look good, you're over interpreting what it means. So I do think if we could establish more of that natural communication, that, you know, if parents could with confidence know, gee, if my kid's not doing well in math, I'm going to hear from the math teacher, that kind of thing. That can be very helpful in alleviating the concern.
And I think that's where the student-led conferences type things come in, because it's a team approach. It's not, you know, my parent is checking up on me with my teacher's telling on me to my parent. It's you know, students being involved in it in an age where, you know, they should have some ownership over their education. If they're going to be making choices about their own electives in high school, they should be starting to, you know, be held accountable for what they do versus just doing what they're told. And if I don't do my homework, then I miss recess in elementary school or whatnot, that it's, being able to like show off, being able to display what you've done and say, I have a part in it.
Here are the great things I've done. I want to take ownership of it, show you mom, dad, staff, whoever. I taught the system of that as part of it. Some of the best experiences I had were kids. I had a kid rebuild a 1923 John Deere tractor from the ground. He knew everything about every bolt on that thing. At that moment in time, he was the world expert on this tractor. There was no doubt about it. That is a very powerful moment when you're a 16, 17-year-old in a room full of adults, and you are the person, and you are the conveyor of knowledge, and you are the master of whatever we're talking about. And to have a moment like that as a kid, that's pretty cool. And then to have that is kind of the ultimate goal. You can't just end with that. You have to start with, all right, let's sit around and let's have some ownership. Let's talk about this. Hey, you're struggling in math in October. You worked really hard all year long. Let's see where we're at now. How did you do? What did you do? Let's talk about it. And not just adults, the kid in the room being the conveyor.
And even at the elementary school, I know at least in first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade, because that's the ones I've experienced so far, they have some sort of reflection piece more than once a year where they bring home things, whether it's in a portfolio or binder or packet. And the kids do part of it in school, but then part of the assignment is to bring it home, talk about, what you're most proud of, what you feel like you really want to work on. And that's like the next step would be.
Yeah. It's really making meaning of your learning,
Yeah.
right? And acknowledging and recognizing that we're not meant to be perfect. We're not meant to know it right away, but we're meant to learn from our failures or learn. And that's the most powerful, my experience with student-led conferences from elementary to middle and senior project. The most powerful thing is when a student stands in front and can share with their family, I really struggled here, but this is what I learned. And then when I took the summative or the assessment again, look how I did. I understood it. And to really take parents through or explain a standard even, it's so powerful to see little ones like first graders, share that excitement and learning of maybe they're writing or forming the letters or, writing a story. So it would be, particularly for middle school, kind of showcase that and showcase students leading the conference rather than like what you said, just like a back and forth with parents, but the kids not being involved. Like really, that's agency, right? That's really kids owning their own learning and then being able to articulate that. It's exciting.
So, I think functionally what you're doing is a rebranding effort, right? Yeah. Like for the community. But at the core, you're shifting the product. Yeah, you're changing the product, but you've already begun that evolution. So I'm considering what a busy parent's going to think about is what's the different expectation of my child and of me in this? So I would say in the process of I'm totally in support of it, right? I think that it's the transition. Middle school is a liminal space between these two, and as many concrete rites of passage that you can instill in there to help them make that transition totally makes sense. But how do we help parents and students or learners really understand, okay, what's the change in expectations, and how do we concretely prepare them for that change in expectations so that it's not just oh, this is happening, but this is exciting that this is happening. This is a good thing for the community and our family.
I think some of that work begin with teachers really embracing some of the core values and vision of graduate. I was worried that our middle school folks would be, oh, no, that's the high school problem. This is vision for graduate. But they did a lockdown through middle school. There are shout-out reports on core values and mission. What's going to change is we're going to really embrace that from a parent perspective. Should be expecting to see some more stories what's the connection to some of the things that we're trying to build. Having that student agency piece to me is huge. I'd love to have a sixth grader explain to a teacher and a parent I'm not a kindness this year at the end. And I guess from a question about what's that look like from the parents about what's going on, it's going to be a shift from kind of that classic standing over and kids can take the instructions and do the knock over at home hey, you're not great, but to have more parent involvement, be ready to engage with us and your child as we kind of go through that process. That's kind of
Like my mind's going to like my day job, right? Like, and I'm thinking about like change management, right? Like, and start with like awareness. So like, I think a lot of people are probably aware of the conversation of moving to it. And it's desire, which there probably already is desire, but continue to manifest that desire. And it gets into like knowledge, ability, like, okay, there's something I have to do different in order to support my child in this scenario. What is that thing so that I'm able to live up to my end of the deal in our partnership in the education of this child?
You know, in many ways, what we're talking about is, middle school is like an extended period of transition, and education is about transitions. And I think, one of the points that Andy made is, there's a strong parental involvement up through elementary school, and then it just goes away in 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And I think it's for good reasons. Kids don't want their parents around when they're at that stage of life. Just, it goes both ways.
It's coming.
Never
coming. Oh, yeah.
But
This one.
it is about like what can we do to find meaningful roles for families and so forth. And we're transitioning. And I think back to like when we're bringing in new kindergartners, we got to remind ourselves that it's first time kindergarten parents too. And it's like, what is the expectation there? And I think there's room to do the same thing at the middle school level. And that's what, in fact, we talked the other day at one of our leadership meetings about all the different transitions that our school kind of manages. And one of the advantages we have is we are just 2 buildings in one town. So we should be able to manage those transitions more effectively. And I think middle school and having structures that are flexible, like, to be very honest, the 6th grade experience should not be the same as the 8th grade experience in structure. Right. The kids are coming from a self-contained classroom environment in 5th grade, and suddenly they're thrown into an environment where they have 4, 5, 6 adults with different sets of expectations. Should there be some more transitional approach there too? So there's a lot there that you're eventually, as kind of Lonnie is saying, you're trying to get to a place where kids have that level of autonomy and independence that they can function. You want that kid graduating from Newmarket High School, to be able to make decisions for themselves, to follow up on things themselves, to check their grades themselves, and intrinsically say, I got to do something to get this done. And that's what you want for them, but we can't pretend that kids show up at age 10 in 6th grade with that where they're at. It takes time. And I think that's really what we're talking about, is really looking at that transitional period and making sure it does all those things and it educates the kids as well as families as to what's going on here. I always get a kick out of that statement that Andy said about nobody likes who they were. Nobody has a good experience in middle school, because if you ask anybody, talk about when you were 12. Did you feel good about yourself at that time? And most people have a negative perception, but it isn't because you were bad. It's because it was a rough time of life and there's a lot going on. And so the stresses were there, but you're the person you are because of what you went through there, and helping people to understand that that's all just part of the process.
And I also think parents I think the easiest transition will actually be parents who have not had kids, or families who have not had kids in middle school yet, because they're already involved at the elementary school. They want to be involved, they're ready to keep going. I think if you've had a student in the middle school and you were used to the kind of hands-off, do your thing, you're maybe expecting that for your next child, whereas it's going to be a different experience. I think that's probably going to be the trickiest. They've had some sort of, whether it's negative or neutral experience, and that's what they're expecting. Again, they need to be aware that, no, it's not going to look like it did with, your first or second.
Yeah. It's hard, difficult when my kids went to middle school. I felt like I'm no longer needed, wanted, not involved.
Yeah, but the
They don't
elementary
want me,
school
the
parents,
teachers
they
don't
want
want
to
me,
do that.
literally no one wants me.
I was like here, so involved, and all of a sudden I was down here,
Well, we should try to, this is a very important topic. We spent quite a bit of time on it. Is there any last round?
Just thinking about, I know you're working on material, I guess, to roll this out to the community. The counsel I would give is, the transition is a big theme, and my recommendation would be to try to keep it more focused around that and more practical. The 6-box slide that you had earlier in the deck, my honest first reaction reading that is, okay, I read each of these 6 boxes. Each of these applies equally to elementary school, middle school, and high school. Now, it
So-
means 3 different things at the 3 different levels, but the slide itself,
a great point.
there was nothing that differentiated it from a slide you would put up for the elementary or high school.
So just to clarify, so our ask tonight will be for them to come up with a transition presentation and bring it back to us. So we'll be able to add
Yeah.
more additional comments
I
and
mean,
thoughts
yeah,
then. But that's a
just
great point.
my counsel as you embark on the effort is really try to come up with a presentation that explains what are we changing and why, and rather than the more philosophical. because-
Concrete, right? What's in it for me from
You
a
spent
parent's
good letters
perspective?
like Ellen did.
Yeah, the WIFM, what's in it for me?
There you go. Thank you.
Do you have
Oh,
a
go
copy
ahead,
of this,
sorry.
sorry, Gary, a copy
Gary's
of this
trying.
article?
The presentation,
Is that-
oh, the
I can't
article,
open it. Yeah, I can't. It
oh.
won't open.
the 1995 article?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I can get that.
And the only other thing I was thinking about, I mean, it's like 30 years old, this article. So a lot has changed in middle school from 1995
I was
to now.
in
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so for example, like social emotional learning,
Yeah.
adding in the component of
I mean,
that.
it's a lot more
But in
complex.
terms of, I guess we were just starting from like, where did it, I was kind of giving the historical kind of perspective of where it started from. And it was that teaming structure. Kids felt like they were falling through the cracks in a junior high. You weren't assigned to a team, where kids are assigned to a team.
Right.
Granted, it's smaller here at Newmarket, so it's only 1 team per grade level, but, in larger schools, it would be like 4 teams, 4 different teams in 6th grade. So a parent could feel their child would get lost in a junior high, whereas, these are the 4 core teachers that my child has. So we're just kind of just sharing, like, where did it come from, why middle school, and even the components, and Dan, you made a good point. But today, when you're looking at middle school, you're talking really focusing on learner-centered instruction. The teacher-centered instruction is like that stand and deliver model. And we know that we've already kind of shifted and morphed to a more learner-centered instruction, but then adding that SEL component as well. So certainly to your point, yeah, we've come a long way since 1995.
So thank you both very much for staying late again and being here with us, for creating a presentation on very short notice. I know that. And for clearly the thought that you, 3 of you, give outside of working hours about how to improve the school, because the passion is palpable. So really appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we can now move along to the 24-25 superintendent goals and evaluation process. So we revised the process last year, as you all remember. The final evaluation is presented to the superintendent in June, I think, something like that.
What you did last year was you presented it, you wanted it done prior to the seating of the new board, so it was in March.
Oh, yeah, we shifted the focus years, but, so anyways, we talked about doing a write-up prior to the election and the board reseating. To do that, we would need to have something to give to Todd by the 6th, and we can meet with him and present on the 6th, which means we should probably have something written up, a draft that we can all discuss on the 20th, which means we should probably have a sit-down with Todd on the 6th, our next meeting, to discuss where he's at currently and get any feedback the board has so that we can generate a document that we can then discuss with Todd.
Do we have a copy of the Word document of the last one, so that we have a format?
That's
Or
a
we
great
moved so
question.
far away from that in the policy that,
I don't know if we do.
I probably have it, because Andrew
Yeah.
was the one that drafted the last one. Yep.
So with that in mind,
You want a draft to,
so basically what I'm trying to say is, next meeting, we should probably meet with Todd, have him go over where he's at with his goals. And then we can all discuss it, maybe come up with some comments, maybe by the 20th, one of us can create a draft document that we can review on the 20th of February, and then on March 6th, we can have a final sit-down prior to the election to go over it with Todd, if that makes sense to everybody.
And just to refresh your memory, on October 3rd, we had the last, because remember, in the new policy, we said twice a year, we're going to have a non-public to just talk about things. On October 3rd, I gave you sort of and it's in the board meeting backup, so you can go back and look at it. Just where I thought I was in relation to the goals as of October 3rd. I'm happy to do that again for February 6th, to give that to you, so you have those 2 points in time, so you can use that to work from, and
That
that makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion about that? Okay, we will head down into acknowledgement of donations. We have, again, very generous donations from the NCEP. We have a storyteller grant for $750 and a $700 grant for Screenager event. Screenagers, thank you. Screenager event. Tell, I've never heard of that. So thank you very much to the NCEP for the continued support.
Do we know when that is? Or if it's just in school?
It is on
Patty, have they scheduled a screenagers yet?
So unfortunately, we don't have a date quite yet because we're still hoping that we can have rescheduled date for our initial parent forum. Our facilitator had a very unexpected emergency in her family, so I haven't been able to connect with her yet, but we just wanted to give her time because we really would, because that forum talks in a very kind of intimate setting of small groups, using scenarios of what parents kind of deal with screen time with students and parenting, and then we thought it would be so appropriate after that is to show screenagers. So we're hopeful in the next week or two that I can come back and give you more information.
Maybe on February 6th, we can update.
Perfect.
Awesome, thank you. Head into action items. As everyone I'm sure knows, we're part of a cooperative hockey team in our area, and there's Sanborn's asking to join that. Gosh, I am going to learn how to speak. Collaborative. It's not as part of the agenda. It's a new item that was handed to me tonight by Jamie. So basically, there's a document authorizing Sanborn to be included in our cooperative teams, and as a spot for my signature. So I'd like to seek a motion to drop that nameplate and
Coming from minutes and minutes.
seek a motion to authorize me to sign the contract, including Sanborn as part of our cooperative hockey team.
I'll make the motion, but just questions before we
Sure,
go,
of course.
if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, motion to allow Gary to sign it.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Phil. All in favor? No, I was kidding. Discussion?
Wait, so the echo, I keep
Oh, I'm
having a hard
sorry,
time
yeah.
hearing you. What, like, so
So
what are
we're
we
part
of now and who's joining it?
So there's a cooperative boys ice hockey team that we're all part of now, including Portsmouth and the other towns.
It's in Portsmouth and Newmarket.
Towards the Newmarket, just two towns.
And then they want to add Sanborn.
And Sanborn wants to join, and as part of that, there's a contract authorizing them to be included
We're
in
just
our
letting
cooperative.
them join our club.
Exactly. I can pass this around if you want to read it.
Sorry, I was just literally
Yeah.
having a hard time
Yeah,
hearing.
I'm sorry, I didn't present it very well either.
It's more in line with what the NHIA requires to expand a cooperative. So, yeah, so it's just basically to allow Sanborn to join, and I assumed that there's plenty of slots on the team that they have not been able to fill, and adding Sanborn.
I mean, that would be
allows them
my
to have
only
a-
question about it, is like, is there an opportunity, is this going to force Newmarket kids that want to play not to have the opportunity?
Yeah.
How does it work?
That's what matters to me. Okay.
Need the bodies.
They need, okay, that's very different than like,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. I will sign that. Seek a motion to approve the January 9th, 2025 public and non-public minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Phil, second by Dan. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, they actually weren't attached to the agenda.
There's a link there. If you get, there's a little clock and
I have
then,
the same problem. If you're not signed into board docs under your school board account, you won't see the link.
Oh, come on.
I had the exact same issue and was very confused.
we should probably just make them available publicly because,
Ellen is probably watching right now, taking minutes, and so we'll discuss it tomorrow, and we'll figure out a solution.
yeah. And their drafts are always available if anyone requests them, so we might as well just put them on there. So from that, seek a motion to authorize the administration to investigate a name change from Newmarket Junior High School to Newmarket Middle School.
So moved.
Motion by Phil, second by Lonnie. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Seriously,
Oh,
thanks for all the hard work on this. I
they're
do appreciate
ignoring
all
it.
the thought that's gone into it. And if I sound critical, it's mostly just because I want to make sure that all that work and the good ideas come across well
No, I
to
don't
the
think you're
people in the
critical at all.
community, so.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Seek a motion to approve fiscal year 2025 Q2 financials.
Do we have to, have we ever approved the
I
financials
don't
before? I
even
feel like
think
it's
so.
been presented.
I
Yeah.
don't believe you have to.
Okay. Okay, thank you. It seemed odd to me, but I just work here.
Karen just reads what's on the paper. Anything that's on the
hand it to me, it
teleprompter, he
doesn't
reads.
matter.
You
I
know
just
that
read it.
about him.
Yeah, I'll read
Ron
anything.
Burgundy.
Exactly, right. All right, the manifest, Phil.
I make a motion to approve the manifest in the total of $799,597.69.
Motion by Phil, second by Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. And it looks like we have.
There are no policy approvals,
Oh,
so ignore
Yeah, we
that.
did that last time, right? I
Okay,
saw those.
thank you.
I don't think I signed the manifest.
You should have read
I think you
this.
got away, oh yeah, it just got put there. I wasn't gonna start the ball.
All right, we do need to have a non-public. So we have two items, hardship request and a
Personnel issue.
personnel issue. Thank you very much. So seek a motion to go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91A3, C 832, C, to discuss personnel matter and student hardship requests.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Phil, second by Dan. A roll call vote. Lonnie Stebbins.
Aye.
Gary Swanson, aye. Amy Tilton. Phil Nazaro.
Aye.
Dan Smith.
Aye.
With that, we are in non-public at 6:37 PM.